A little bit of luck, and obviously we did a different strategy to everyone else. One stop, medium hard. We didn't plan of using the hard, but actually they worked really well when I was on my own. So I think, you know, every time we need to try something a bit different with the team, because the raw pace of the car is just not quite good enough. But everything went well today, and for everyone, I'm super happy.
Really good job, man. Yeah, Roman, I must ask, we've heard that you might have hurt your hand or your finger. How are you?
It's blue.
Okay.
It's painful. I was turning turn 11 and Kimi in front of me went in the gravel. And one of the gravel, obviously some hit my helmet, but one went straight into my finger. And initially I thought it was broken because I couldn't bend in anymore. So I drove a fair bit of the race like this. And then eventually, no, it's better, but I'm still very much in pain. But I don't care. For 2 points, I take it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you'll take a broken finger. That's fine. And obviously, you know what it's like to perform very well here, coming third in 2013. I'm sure you'll take some points from here, though.
Yeah, for sure. It's a very good track, very old style, different curves, camber, up and down. It's not easy to overtake, that's for sure, but it's mega to drive.
Oh, Roman, thank you very much indeed. Pietro, I'm sure you have a word for your teammate.
Yeah, no, just like I said, he did an amazing job. The whole team was very proud, and very important points for us, really, really important. And like he said, sometimes we have to try these different strategies to make it work, because the raw pace of the car isn't there, and today it definitely did.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe we are going to get Cyril Abiteboul of Renault over to us very soon. That Daniel Ricciardo podium, can't quite see him just yet, but that Daniel Ricciardo podium is his first step on the podium since that win in Monaco in 2018. It's Renault's first podium since 2011. And the caveat here is that with that podium, Daniel Ricciardo gets to design Cyril a tattoo, but Cyril can decide the place and the size of said tattoo.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing bet there. First, it's really well-deserved podium for Renault, for Daniel as well. He's been driving amazingly. And I want to see what that tattoo is going to be like. I want to see what he picks. It's going to be funny.
I can't wait to see what that tattoo is. Let's take a look, though. If for some reason you missed the race or you want to recap, let's take a look at the all-important results. And here they are then, the race results from, well, a chaotic Eifel Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton taking his 91st win and matching that record. Max Verstappen in second. And as we just mentioned, Daniel Ricciardo with a step on the podium. Renault's first since 2011. Sergio Perez oh so close in fourth. Carlos Sainz held off Pierre Gasly for fifth and sixth. Charles Leclerc in seventh, and Nico Hulkenberg in the points on merit. An astonishing performance from him. Romain Grosjean and Antonio Giovinazzi, we just heard from, of course, both delighted to be in the points there. Of course, 5 abandons today. Sebastian Vettel just outside the points in 11th. Magnussen, Raikkonen, Latifi and Kvyat completing that lineup. And we are joined by P5, Carlos Sainz. Carlos, how was that from your point of view, holding off Pierre Gasly?
He got close. I mean, we've been struggling all weekend with the front end, and today with the graining we had, we were always very weak at the end of our stints, and not very happy, honestly. We finished in P5, but the feeling with the car and everything was just not there. So quite a bit of homework to do and investigations into what we put new on the car this weekend that made it feel strange.
It was always going to be challenging, wasn't it? You were running new parts, you had limited data on the track anyway, and very limited running here, so the odds were somewhat stacked against you.
Yeah, definitely not having a Friday didn't allow us to conclude what was the new package doing, so we needed to go into quali and the race with something unknown and something that we hadn't run before, which meant for sure we didn't get it in the sweet spot, but at the same time I tend to think that normally good upgrades tend to work straight out of the box, and we need to investigate why this one didn't, so we'll see.
And we must ask as well how Lando is. He was looking good in P3, and then of course technical issues for Lando and he was off the track. How is he?
I don't know, I haven't seen him yet, so I haven't talked to him, and I don't know really.
We'll see how he gets on. Thank you very much to you indeed, Carlos Sainz, and better luck next time at the Portuguese Grand Prix.
Thank you.
Yeah, so McLaren, not quite their day, was it?
Yeah, I mean, still, Sainz, Carlos finished P5 at the end of the top 5 finish, so good points there. But of course, yeah, could have missed a shot at the podium at the end with Lando.
So we mentioned that tattoo, and desperate to find out what the tattoo will be, I have a chuckling Cyril next to me from Renault. We're going to start first of all. That's your first podium since 2011. You guys must be delighted with what you've seen here.
No, absolutely, and I know that there is this tattoo story, but I don't want to make the story of the day. The story of the day is clearly a milestone in the journey of the team. You know, it's we're back as a complete team since 2016. You know, it's taken a while. There's been lots of criticism or doubt about our commitment to the sport, about also our capacity to progress in the sport, and finally to get into that position. You know, let's be clear also that position today was also made possible because there was a retirement of Valtteri. We know that our car is not in straightforward circumstances capable of doing that, but there is no doubt that we are progressing, and I see that as a small boost of energy for what's to come next.
Let's get to the important stuff though. Where is the tattoo going to be? What size is it going to be? And has Daniel given you any indication of what design it will be?
No. It was a long time ago, so I will have to negotiate a little bit all of that. I think he gets to choose the design. I get to choose the size, which I think what matters in this case.
Yeah, I agree. I have to agree. The place, where's it going to be, do you think?
I don't know. We'll talk about that. We'll see. We'll take a bit of time to negotiate. But again, it's been remarkable today. It's you know, the drive that is done in the last few races is, you know, I think his P4 not to the championship is extremely deserved. We are really in the mix with Racing Point and McLaren, so no, it's good. It's going to be a very fun couple of races to come. But he's been a great team member, and you know, he brought really some things. There was some question mark also about what he was bringing to the team. He brought an awful lot, and it's too bad for Esteban today. Let's not forget that again we lost a car early into the race, but I think Esteban will also have been part of that mix, so it's again good to see that both of them can work well together.
Yeah, you could certainly have had both cars in the points and deep in the points as well. Final question is on that battle for P3 in the constructor standings. You are certainly seeming the most consistent of the teams in the recent races and closing that gap in on McLaren, Racing Point.
Yeah, but I think the consistency is really coming from reliability and good execution. I think, frankly, I mean, the three cars that you're mentioning, they are very close from one another. There will be some differences according to the track characteristic, but we are very, very close. We all have a car that's good enough for P3, so it's very much who will be the most reliable and the most good in execution on the races.
Well, congratulations today.
Thank you.
Do keep us up to date with where that tattoo is going to be and the size. I'd imagine it's going to be quite a small one, but do keep us up to date with that.
I'll open an Instagram account, I think, for that.
We shall see. Thank you. Well done today, and all the best for the remaining Grand Prix this season as well. Well, there we go. We're going to head now, for the first time this post-race show, to see Rosanna Tennant and Sam Collins in the studio. And we're going to be looking at that race start and indeed the 5 abandons. We just mentioned Esteban Ocon there. There were 4 other abandons in this race as well, 4 more retirements. We're going to be discussing them with Rosanna and indeed Sam Collins as well. Rosanna, how are you?
Very well, thank you, Laura. Great to see you guys out there in the paddock. We're having a great time here in the studio, and as ever, Sam and I have gone back through the race to the race start because we always think that's a nice place to begin, don't we? Sam, what did you make of Lewis Hamilton's car positioning into turn 1? How lucky was he to get away with that?
Well, off the line, a lot of the cars looked a little bit, you can see it there, they all looked a little bit uncertain of what each other were doing. But if you look at Lewis Hamilton trying to go round the outside of Bottas there, gets very aggressive, gets pushed wide. Now, I think if he'd made that move stick and made it work, he'd have got a penalty. It was a little bit, and Valtteri Bottas was a little bit lucky there as well to hold the position off the track. We've seen Max Verstappen get penalised for that, and we've seen that the race director was getting a little bit twitchy about a few people. Romain Grosjean got that black and white flag later on for that same corner. So I think Hamilton and both Mercedes were a little bit lucky, not only to get away scot-free without any penalties, but also not to bump into each other.
I know, I was thinking, my gosh, are we going to see scenes like we did in Barcelona back in 2016 with Rosberg and Hamilton? They got away with it, as you say, Sam. A great start and a great race from Nico Hulkenberg. How impressed. And what did you make of his drive this afternoon?
Well, he turned up yesterday, did 8 laps in qualifying, including in-laps and out-laps, set off the line. His start was, well, it was OK, but everybody else around him seemed to have a bad start. And he must be thinking to himself, well, this is like coming back home, and it didn't seem too difficult, did it? Look, he managed to get a Williams, he goes around the outside, he has a nice time in those first 2 corners, and it just that's experience coming through. You don't forget how to do that as a racing driver. But look, he's just gaining positions left, right, while everybody else is having their own private dramas. You can see that brake smoke and all the stuff going on. And that sort of summed up his whole race. You know, started dead last and everything else happened to everybody else, and he just sort of worked his way through the field and ended up in the points.
Slowly chipping away at that iceberg. And not bad for a driver who said yesterday at 11 o'clock he had a heart attack when that phone rang from Otmar Zafnar. So great to see Nico back in the game today. Let's talk about the retirements, those DNFs that Laura mentioned. So many during a race that didn't have that many kind of big moments. What do you put that down to? Is it track characteristics? Is it the temperatures that we've seen this weekend?
It was a funny one because there was like sort of a glut of retirements all around the same period in the race. And first one, you know, Valtteri Bottas, it's not a normal failure. Mercedes don't normally have failures, and I think that was a new power unit into the back of the car. So we saw him having a few problems locking his brakes, and then he just couldn't get his foot down. Well, that's the start of the race where he was having a little battle with Lewis Hamilton there. But that's Bottas having this failure did lead to that other battle with Hamilton, and it clearly caught him by surprise. Got on the radio, no power. I thought, oh well, it's new power unit, some sort of issue. But then we started to see other drivers having similar problems. We heard Lando Norris get on the radio. He had a gear shift problem. I went and looked on his data. So that was a transmission issue. He couldn't get the gear to do what he wanted. Sorry, that was Esteban Ocon had the transmission problem, rather.
So many issues.
Yeah, Lando Norris had a no power issue as well. So the power unit just right the way through. He was pressing the button, getting on the radio, saying, I haven't got any power, I can't do this. They tried to make it work. Eventually, it didn't, and we had a bit of a situation as a result.
And of course, that's probably why the likes of Mercedes brought Valtteri in, rather than leaving him out to suffer the same fate that Lando Norris did. Would you agree with that?
I mean, you wanted to protect the car, and we saw what happened with McLaren. They left the car out there, and it sort of started to burn quite nicely, and that's what brought out the safety car, because the car looked like it was about to turn into a fireball. In the end, it didn't. But then we saw more problems through the race for other drivers. So it does strike me that perhaps the curbs are more aggressive, than anybody expected, a bit like Austria. Was it the very cold temperature getting the teams to run in different configurations in terms of their cooling system? I think it wasn't coincidence. I think there was some track characteristic that made the cars fail. But interestingly, Imola is looking like it's going to be very similar in this situation.
Well, we've got plenty to look forward to in the coming weeks. And you've mentioned safety car. We will be back a little later on to analyse that safety car restart, Laura.
Thank you very much indeed, Rosanna. Yeah, fascinating to hear the race start analysis there, and indeed the problems that the drivers seem to have had. One driver who didn't seem to have any issues whatsoever with overtaking, indeed with what was the most bonkers weekend, is Nico Hulkenberg, and he joins us live now in the studio here in the paddock from P20 up to P8.
Yep.
Talk us through it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think I have to, realize and digest the whole 24 hours myself a bit. It was all obviously so quick, not much time to think about anything. You just have to function. But I just try to, keep clean at the start, and then obviously a huge learning curve through the race for me, adapting to the car and the grip, and just bit by bit it was getting better and better. And that's all I was busy with, pushing myself in the car, and I managed the tires in the first stint, and I think that was key to have a strong second stint, and it kind of unfolded. The race came towards us, a couple of people dropping out, which obviously helped us too, but very happy obviously to be able to get points for the team and to show like that.
And you were due to be on broadcast duties, and indeed we were due to have an interview, and suddenly you get this call and you're jumping in a car, and I know you said that car has evolved hugely from Silverstone. So how difficult was it to drive, and how quickly did it take you just to get used to the differences between the car we're seeing here and the car we saw at Silverstone?
Yeah, first of all, obviously it's a different track, so that's always a very different feel. It's mainly about the steering that they've changed a lot, so that's something that takes some time to get used to and get your head around. Obviously 4 laps in quali is not going to do the job, and then that was one of the things in race that I got more and more on top of. And then just using the car's pace, to be honest, and managing to stay faultless.
And you're very much the man of the moment today, and you couldn't have done a whole lot more to put yourself very much in contention for a seat next season. And I'm sure that's something you would like. Tell us.
Yeah, of course. I love racing. It's my passion, but obviously I'm very keen to come here again and do this permanently. But I'm very keen, but not desperate. So it has to be on good terms, with a good opportunity as well on the sporting outlook side. So obviously it's all a process, and a process that hasn't come to an end yet. There is some talks, sometimes more, sometimes less. It's still undecided. So we'll see where the future takes us, and me personally.
I'm sure there are many fans of F1 who'd love to see you back in the seat permanently. Nico Hulkenberg, congratulations for a brilliant, entertaining drive today, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Ciao.
Pietro, have you ever been called up so late in the day and jumped in a car and had to just do what you can do?
I have once before. Was preseason testing in Barcelona 2019. I was a test driver with Haas. I was supposed to drive, it's usually a 4-day test. I was supposed to drive Thursday and it was Wednesday and Thursday, but I was there at the track on Tuesday following, keeping up, trying to get ready for my test on Wednesday. It was end of the day and I was in the engineering's truck, and one of the engineers came to me and told me, "Are you ready to get in the car?" And I looked at him and I said, "Yeah, I'm ready. I'm getting ready for tomorrow. All my things, all my kit's ready." And he's like, "No, you're ready to get in the car now." And I started laughing. I thought he was joking with me. And I was like, "Yeah, of course, I'm ready to get in anytime, And he looks at me, he's like, "No, seriously, they're putting your seat in the car, your pedals. You're gonna drive now for the last hour," because Kevin ended up having an issue with his neck, and they asked me to jump in last minute. And yeah, it's crazy. Like you said, you just try to function. Obviously, it's a lot more pressure coming into a race week, and I was only testing. But you just try to get in the car, stay calm, hit your marks, and at the end of the day, try to perform at your best. But keeping calm and trusting your ability.
I suppose you haven't got the time to panic or get too nervous, simply because you've got to get in there and get going.
Yeah, and me as a test driver, like as much time as I can get in a Formula One car, it's always an amazing opportunity. So there was about an hour left in practice, and they're like, "Get your kit ready," and I was like, I need to get changed as quickly as possible because I don't want to waste any minute. I want to jump in the car because the car was basically ready. They can change seats and pedals really quickly, so they were just waiting on me to get my suit and everything. I don't think I've ever put a suit on that quick. Just put it on, I was straight in the car, ready to go.
Oh, it's incredible. And Hulkenberg very much having the maddest weekend in F1. So remarkably mixed fortunes for Mercedes. A race win and equaling that Michael Schumacher record for Lewis Hamilton. Valtteri Bottas, however, starting on pole, overtaken by his teammate after locking up, and then having to retire with a power unit failure. We spoke to Valtteri Bottas a little bit earlier.
Valtteri, what's the overriding emotion? It was all looking so good into turn one, and then obviously it all went wrong.
Yeah, really disappointed. Of course, I was never going to let the win by easily, as I showed in the first corner. Obviously, I had the lockup later on in the race because there was a bit of drizzle in some corners and also in turn one. But then I knew that it's going to be pretty good fun and all to play for. But just during the VSC, I started to lose power from the power unit, and it never recovered. It was quite a big loss, and the team called me in.
How do you feel about the championship? It's obviously not over yet, but it's going to be a lot harder now.
Yeah, of course. We first need to see how the race finishes. But if the current positions stay, then it's going to be tricky, no doubt. But yeah, you never know.
All right, hard luck. Thank you.
Well, visibly disappointed, and rightly so, and understandably so. Valtteri Bottas there, of course, from pole to retiring. Another driver who suffered a similar ill fortune from P3 in the race and looking good as well to retiring. Here is Lando Norris.
Lando, you had to work pretty hard out there today, didn't you?
Yeah, today was not our day in any way, really. I think the first half was really, well, I wouldn't say first half. First quarter was really good. Good opening lap, good pace. And then it all started to go very wrong. We had some problems initially with the engine, I think. And in managing those problems every single lap, I was having to press buttons and whatever to manage it. So I was struggling a lot, still not much power. And in the end, it just gave up completely. So yeah, I don't know a lot to say. Was on for a definite P4 pretty much, and possibly or hopefully fighting Ricciardo for our P3, but it wasn't to be today.
What was going through your head when you pulled up a pew on that plastic chair by the side of the track?
I don't know, don't know, it's just a lot of hard work that goes into it, but from the team and from myself. And so quickly it just, it's gone. I was still on for some points, even with the problem. Maybe not after the safety car, but the safety car was caused by me. So, we could have still salvaged something out of it if it didn't go completely, which would have been better than nothing for us. But I just look at my poor car on the left. They're just spraying it with extinguisher and spraying it in places. It's just a white car in the end, and it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. That's all I thought. So.
How are you feeling about the engine situation? Obviously, change it before the race might be another issue now. It's not looking good for the rest of the season in terms of penalties.
Yeah, it's not.
How do you feel about it?
Yeah, it's not my problem. It's not something I can control. So.
All right, hard luck. Thanks.
Well, there we go. Lando Norris understandably upset as well with how his afternoon has played out from what was such a promising position. How does a driver bounce back in 2 weeks' time from disappointment like this? And they were out the points as well at Sochi.
Yeah, I mean, you as a driver, you always bounce back. First, it wasn't his fault. I think it's more difficult as a driver to bounce back when it was something that when it was your mistake that caused a loss in points or a good finish. But it wasn't his fault. And as a driver, you bounce back. I mean, it's part of it. I'm sure Monday, Tuesday, he's going to be a bit down, but by Wednesday, you're already focused on the next race, and you go on to the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're itching to get racing again, to put this all behind them. We're now going to cross to the studio once again. Rosanna and Sam are going to talk about the tyre strategy for today. 1 stop versus 2 stop, Rosanna.
Yeah, Laura, we went into the race with several different tyre strategies available. We were talking about it during the F1 Live pre-race show. Mario Sola had different options that he thought drivers and teams would go for. Any strategies that surprised you, Sam? Any that weren't ones that you would have gone for if you'd been making decisions on the pit wall this afternoon?
The one that really jumped out to me, who had Roman Grosjean talking about it earlier, and it did pay off, was that one-stop strategy, going from the medium tyre to the hard tyre. What made that such a surprise was nobody's even tried a single lap on the hard tyre up to that point. So we're like, let's stick this tyre on and see what happens. That's a ballsy strategy.
And that was the slowest. Pirelli always give us a sort of list of options and say, this would be the quickest, this would be the second quickest, this would be the slowest, and that was the slowest. So are you surprised that Haas went for that, or did they just have to try something different?
They had to try something different, but if anybody tried that strategy, it was going to be Haas. They've been trying all sorts of different strategies through the season. We saw it at Silverstone very clearly. Haas, being a NASCAR team as well as a Formula One team, have a slightly different approach to race strategy. And they're used to going for these very long races where you might see a safety car quite often. And actually, if you don't pit at the same time as everybody else, you can get track position and move up the order. At Silverstone, it didn't work. Here, safety car came out and it worked a treat for Haas, and Grosjean moved up the order, and that NASCAR strategy paid off brilliantly and got them a heap full of points.
Well, there you go. You've got to have fingers in all pies, be on every side of that Atlantic Ocean. Let's talk about the turn 1 lockups that we saw. Lots of drivers having trouble getting around that turn. Again, is that just the cold weather or just not knowing the tyres and how to push them in those conditions?
As usual, it's a combination of both of those factors. The cold conditions was absolutely, clear. You see here the 77 car locking up. That wasn't a straight one of these lockups because that was Bottas struggling with a power unit problem. But here you see the battles going on. The Alfa Romeo there catching himself out and then catching the Williams out and bringing out quite a spectacular time. The Red Bull there having the same problem. The drivers just aren't used to pushing these tyres when they're going off because they haven't had that practice on them. They didn't get those free practice sessions in. The tyres then aren't in the window, they're not in the condition they were when they did get a bit of practice on them on Saturday morning. So these are worn out tyres, they don't know what they're going to do, the temperature's much colder than they expected, and it's really easy just to brake a little bit too hard, lock up that unloaded inside wheel just as they start to steer, and yeah, you destroy the tyre and that can bring you into the pits early. Alex Albon had that exact problem. That's why he had to stop so early, though we don't quite know what his problem was that caused him to retire from the race a little bit later on.
No, we'll have to keep an eye on the Red Bull Racing press release and their social media to find out what's going on there. Perhaps we'll get a word with Alex Albon a little later on. So there you go, turn 1 lockups and interesting tyre strategies for you there, Laura. Sam and I will be back in just a few moments later on in the show to talk about that safety car restart. Again, tyre temperatures were all the drivers were talking about, weren't they, behind Bernd Maylander in the safety car.
Yeah, that safety car restart really did mix things up. For me, I was holding my breath because after the last safety car restart and the carnage that ensued, I didn't want to see anything like that again. For you, what were you going through? What was going through your mind at that point?
Yeah, I was excited. I mean, Roman was in a good position. Kevin was too. Actually, I thought the safety car was going to hurt Roman a lot because he was on the harder compound. It's hard to keep the temps up in this track in the conditions that we're in. So I thought it was going to hurt him. And Kevin was on newer tires. So I was thinking at the time, Kevin's going to have, much more advantage, because he has newer tires, softer compound. You'll be able to keep the temperature in. But at the end, Roman, at least from when I was watching with the team, Roman was able to keep his position, score some points. And like I said, the safety car, I thought it was going to be crazy because it's so difficult to keep the temps in these tires. As a driver on the safety car, even when it's not conditions like this, you're trying to brake, you're trying to weave. In the dash of the car, you have tire temps, you have brake temps. The engineers are telling you all the time. And I was watching on the screen, and usually you want to keep the tire temps around 100 degrees, front and rear. And when they start dropping below 90, when they're in the 80s, that's when you already know it's cold. And I was looking at Roman's tires, and it was down to 70 at a point. But what really saved those drivers was when they had to get their lap back, and they were able to do a lap at a higher speed. Then they were able to get the temps in the tires. But yeah, it was exciting, and especially in the conditions we're in, makes it even more exciting to watch.
Well, one driver who might just be thinking, what might have been had it not been for that safety car was Sergio Perez. Of course, he finished P4, but he was challenging Daniel Ricciardo for that all-important podium spot. We spoke to him a little bit earlier.
Checo, so close to a podium today. How was it out there?
Yeah, as expected in a way. We had a good start. We managed well the first stint. We went really long, and I think that made our race again. I think without the safety car, the podium was going to be ours. We were catching very fast Daniel. He was going to struggle at some point with his tires, but then the safety car came. Still at the restart, I had a go. I nearly got him into turn 4. It didn't work either. And I think it's a great result for the team. Nico has done also a hell of a job putting some good points for the team. I think the car was performing well, and we read very well the conditions today, so very pleased with that.
Did you think maybe when the safety car came out, were you thinking about staying out and seeing if you could gamble?
We actually stayed out, but I asked the team again. We should about it because we've done that in a couple of races and it didn't work. And here being so cold, I think it was going to be very difficult to restart the tire. So we boxed and we ended up in the same position. So I think that was a good call from the team.
Right. Thank you very much, Checo. Great result.
Well, there we go. Sergio Perez very much believing that a podium was in his sights and within his reach today, and his team agreeing. Nico Hulkenberg very much saving them from potentially not scoring any points, and both drivers getting in the points this weekend for Racing Point, which will be much appreciated. We're going to go a little bit deeper into that safety car restart with Rosanna and Sam once again in the studio.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, we heard lots from the drivers, didn't we? Particularly Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen talking about how the safety car wasn't going fast enough. Was that where it got away from Max Verstappen then? Just not being able to generate enough heat into those tyres? Or did it go wrong somewhere else for him on the restart?
I think that was part of the reason, but everybody on that restart was much slower than they expected because the safety car had to go much slower because the field was so strung out. But look how far back Max Verstappen is here. It's almost like he was too busy complaining about the safety car going too slowly, and he just didn't have the good position. He should have been right up the gearbox of Lewis Hamilton, and he was 2 or 3 lengths back far too early. He didn't make a good restart, and he nearly lost second position there to the Renault. Fortunately, he got away with it. But if you look at the onboard here, you can see that actually Max just, I don't know, it felt like his head wasn't quite in the game there because he hadn't closed up the field. The safety car was particularly slow because the field had been so strung out after the pit stops under the safety car conditions that when it got time to go back to green, the cars were halfway around the lap. So Charles Leclerc was half a lap down when he should have been back on the back of the train. So he lost out on the opportunity to move up a few places. I think Perez was caught out because Verstappen had dropped back from Hamilton so far. So he lost the opportunity to close up as well. So I think that whole restart was a bit messy from all of the drivers, and perhaps they were sort of once bitten, twice shy after Mugello. But those tyre pressures, tyre temperatures, the drivers are moaning about it. 2 laps later, Lewis Hamilton broke the lap record.
Exactly. But you're right, perhaps a little reluctant to get on the gas to avoid something happening like we saw out in Mugello. And what do you make of that rule in terms of the safety car restart, where the cars have to go back and get onto that lead lap? And obviously that means those leaders, the likes of Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, are left waiting a little bit while those cars do that.
I think that's a good rule, actually. I think it's really good for the entertainment to close up the field and put them into the race order. I would like to see Formula One rethinking its safety car restarts, though. There are some series that have 2x2 grid-shaped restarts. I think that would be really exciting. I think maybe having a restart zone, you see that in other series, that might be quite a good way to do it. But I just think maybe Formula One could explore, and I know Ross Brawn and his team are always coming up with crazy ideas and really fun things to do like that, and I think maybe a 2x2, 2-file restart would be better than these single-file spaced out restarts, just for a bit of, bit more drama.
Well, they've been rubber stamping a few changes to the rule book. Get your letter in, Sam. You've got a couple of weeks before we head to Portugal. Get writing into Ross Brawn. From us in the studio, back to you, Laura and Pietro.
Thank you very much, Rosanna, and indeed Sam as well from the studio. Let's hear now from our top 3, our podium for today at the Eifel Grand Prix. First up is Daniel Ricciardo.
Hey, Daniel.
Hello.
You've still got your boots on, so you didn't fancy a shoey?
Oh, mate, this is really bad. I forgot all about it.
No way.
I literally forgot about it. I'll tell you why. Because as soon as they've done the champagne, Max was already spraying me, and for the first time ever, they chilled the bottles. So normally the champagne's like lukewarm, and it was freezing, or maybe it's just because it's so cold outside. So I was just shocked with cold, and I didn't even. Wow, I'm actually sad now.
Oh, mate, I'm sorry.
Oh. That's all right.
You can do it with the team photo maybe in a bit.
That's right. We'll try and get them all involved. But yeah, it's just it's a long time coming, I guess. And I think, to be honest, probably why I forgot it as well is it's been 2.5 years, and it feels like the first one all over again. That kind of shock happiness. It's come back, being up there, and yeah, it's obviously with a new team, and to see the joy on their face. It's been a long time, and I'm sure the first time for a lot of the people in Renault to see a podium. So yeah, just lots of mixed feelings. Got caught up in it.
I mean, it's been coming though, hasn't it, in recent races? You've been so close. Even today, do you still think we might be out of reach, or do you fancy it?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not like a Hockenheim last year where, yeah, there's a chance of a podium with you can kind of, I don't want to say luck into it, but circumstances, can provide a shocked podium. I think we've been persisting every race. We've been there top 4, top 5, and we put ourselves in the right position for one of the top 3 cars to have a bit of misfortune, and obviously that was Valtteri today. So yeah, we've been there, and I think it feels good to, as you say, to persist and get it, as opposed to lucking in's not the right word, but having one off. This was a long time coming, and we finally got it.
And finally, you're going to hold your boss to that tattoo bet?
Yes, yeah, it's going to happen. So yeah, gonna think of some designs. Try and I want. I want something. Obviously, Cyril, looks at and smiles at and has a good memory. So we'll see. I'll maybe get his opinion, but yeah, I'll do some thinking, do some brainstorming.
Great stuff, Daniel. Enjoy tonight. Congratulations.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Oh, it's lovely to see a driver so happy with the result from today. And I'm sure the entire world of F1 and motorsport is dying to find out what that tattoo is going to be as well. Let's head to our second place driver of the day, and that is Max Verstappen.
Max kept pace with the Mercedes all day today. You must be pretty pleased with the performance of the Red Bull versus the Merc.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to stay close, but yeah, throughout the whole race. Lewis was just a little bit faster, but yeah, I tried to keep it as close as possible. But overall, the pace was not bad. I think compared to everyone behind us, it was a massive gap before the safety car already. And yeah, I think we maximized. Happy with that extra point with fast lap. That was an extra bonus. So yeah, good weekend, positive weekend, and happy with second.
How worried were you about the tyres at that safety car restart? We heard you on the radio saying that he was going pretty slow.
Yeah, the safety car was driving, of course, really slow to bunch up the field. But first of all, I don't think we needed a safety car. You could have done it with a virtual safety car, but I think they just wanted to make it more exciting again because of the gaps. But at a track here where it's so cold with the tires we have, you need to bring them up to temperature. It was quite dangerous out there. And the problem as well is that 3 or 4 cars are all the time behind the safety car. The others, they get the wave around and they can warm up their tire because they're pushing. So it's also an unfair advantage for the guys behind us. But yeah, anyway, we'll talk about it and see what happens.
Great stuff. And just overall, do you have optimism for the final few races now, given the pace of you guys around here?
Yeah, I mean, we of course still need to improve, but I'm happy with second again here, and we just have to keep on pushing, try to make the car even better, and then see what happens.
Great stuff. Thanks, Max.
And a happy Max Verstappen as well, certainly with the pace he managed to keep with the Mercedes today. Our winner, we haven't even talked about him too much here. Our winner today was, of course, Lewis Hamilton. And with that win, he now equals Michael Schumacher's record. And he does it on German soil at the Nürburgring as well. Let's hear from the Eifel Grand Prix champion, Lewis Hamilton.
Lewis, congratulations on a brilliant victory, bringing you level with the great Michael Schumacher. How does it feel?
It's really, really hard to explain at the moment. My mind's a bit blown and I got a bit of a killer headache for some reason. It was such a hard race, super bumpy and physical, and so challenging mentally. And it's crazy. 91 wins, it doesn't get easier, that's for sure. If anything, it gets harder, I think, as you get older, as you face different challenges along the way. But and I just feel honoured to be here. I can't express how grateful I am to every single member of my team who's here, who's back at the factory, who continue to fight and believe in me and push. It's really incredible.
Great battle with your teammate Valtteri right at the start, and
yeah.
Obviously unfortunate what happened to him. How did you explain what happened there, and also in the championship now, because it's looking pretty good for you?
Yeah, I honestly haven't thought about it too much, but the start was, I needed to get a good start, got a great start, and then we were so close to turn 1, and he was in my blind spot, so I couldn't tell where he was, but I had to leave lots of space, and there he goes. He comes back super hard, and I was so impressed, really, really proud of him for how aggressive he was, and I was like, yeah, there's no other way it should be. So great driving from him. But then I was like, okay, so how can I create another opportunity? I've got to make these tires go further than him, and so I was trying to apply the pressure, but without killing my tires, and I managed to push him to a place where he ran out of front tire, and I was like, okay, this is my opportunity, and then he locked up, and it was kind of game over after that. But then I still had Max. I mean, they've picked up such pace, it's so hard to keep. It was a real challenge to keep ahead of them today.
Great work. Thank you very much, Lewis.
Well, an emotional Lewis Hamilton there, and struggling to come to terms with the magnitude of what he's achieved today with 91 wins and equaling the great Michael Schumacher as well. And a physically very tired Lewis Hamilton, showing just how tough today at the Eifel Grand Prix really was. Let's take a look at what today's results have done for the driver standings. Well, with Valtteri Bottas retiring, Lewis Hamilton extends his lead over his Mercedes teammate, and Max Verstappen sitting pretty in third as well with another podium. With the podium indeed for today as well, Daniel Ricciardo moves to 4th, Sergio Perez too with that P4 moves up to 5, Lando Norris with retirement moves down. And there we can see, of course, Esteban Ocon out the top 10 as well, Carlos Sainz 11th. Nicholas Latifi, George Russell bringing up the rear there in the Williams. And the constructors' standings as well. That all-important battle for P3. Mercedes, of course, on top, and Red Bull Racing Honda just behind them as well. It is Racing Point who have taken that P3, of course, due to both drivers getting points. McLaren down to 4th, Renault in 5th, but it's looking very tight for that P3. Well, there we go. What an incredible Eifel Grand Prix we have seen. Pietro, your final thoughts, sum it up for us.
Yeah, another very exciting race. Like I said, we've had like back-to-back very good races, very good racing with all the restarts that's going on. I liked it at the end. I know some drivers probably didn't, but that they threw out the safety car because it brings excitement back into the race. And it's been fun to watch. Difficult weekend for everybody here. One practice into difficult conditions to a track that Formula One hasn't been in many years. And to me, driver of the day, Daniel Ricciardo. He's been on a run recently, and the guy, he deserved the podium. The team really did as well, Renault. And Lewis Hamilton, tying the record with Michael Schumacher. It's 91 wins. You can go 4 straight seasons in a row winning every single race with that amount of wins. It's just unbelievable. He's a legend, and it's great to be here and to be here with Haas and watching these races. It's been really good.
Yeah, it's been a stunning weekend and so much to talk about and to digest here in the post-race show. But that is it from us in the paddock. A big thank you to you, Pietro, for joining me here in the post-race show. And of course to Rosanna Tennant and Sam Collins in the studio in the UK as well. Congratulations to our podium, Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen and Daniel Ricciardo. Let's do it all again in Portugal, shall we? See you then.